conversations, and we'll start with Kylie.
Hello. Hello, welcome to Anchor Moisen's Design Week event. We're so excited to have all of you in our space tonight. I'm super excited about the panel that we have for you. We've hosted a couple of design events here in the past, but mostly just open houses, so we wanted to mix it up this year and do a panel discussion. We know there's so many things going on Design Week, and especially tonight, so we're just really appreciative that you took the time to come to our space and our event. Just to start off, we want to thank the amazing team at Anchor Moisen who helped put this event on, our panelists for being here tonight, and to Environments and Knoll Furnishings for helping set our stage for us tonight.
Can you turn the music off?
We got the music. Thank you. To introduce myself, I'm Kylie Jensen. I'm an associate interior designer here at Anchor Moisen, and I'm going to be one of your moderators for tonight. I've been at the firm for about 5 years now, with the majority of my work focusing on urban and suburban housing of the West Coast. I've worked on a variety of project types, from luxury high-rise towers to amenity-rich suburban campuses, and more recently, affordable housing here in Portland. I'm passionate about creating experiences that enhance people's lives and giving them a place they're proud to call home.
Hello, my name is Michael Bond. I'm a principal here at Anchor Moisen Architects, and I've been here for 20 years, roughly, and I've done majority of my work in affordable housing, a smattering of other things, fire stations, hospitality, and a variety of market rate or senior housing projects, but primarily affordable housing. I have a real passion for that, and I'm very excited to be a part of this panel tonight as a moderator.
So it's no secret that Portland's experiencing some major growing pains, resulting in a shortage of housing options, not only for the most vulnerable of the populations, but for every market of housing out there. In the slideshow that's been playing as you guys entered the space, you've already seen some of the alarming statistics around the housing crisis in our city, but to just sort of cite a few, our city has experienced a 10% increase in homelessness in the last 2 years, and between 2015 and 2017, Portland's rent has rose 20 times faster than the area's median income. The solution, which may seem simple, you get the money, find some land, you build something. Well, unfortunately, it's not that easy. There are so many layers to this process, from public policy to social factors to stakeholder involvement and fluctuating construction costs. The list goes on. For tonight's discussion, we are thinking about this network of agencies as an ecosystem that influences our housing climate. As designers, we are just a part of this larger ecosystem and can serve as conduits between these different groups represented here tonight. Our design process takes us through a journey of empathy, understanding, ideation, creation, and testing. It goes beyond creating sets of drawings and picking pretty materials. It's about user experience. We work to discover what is authentic to the inhabitant of our spaces, the client, and the community. We try not to design anything until we know something. We use this process to challenge the barriers it takes to create a successful housing project. Anchor Moisen moved into these offices in this neighborhood a little over 2 years ago. And as while our space up here on the 3rd and 4th floor are new and inspiring, and we have sprawling river views, we can't ignore what's going on the streets below us. Being in this neighborhood has really brought the housing crisis in our city front and center for our firm. We are proud to be a part of a number of local affordable housing developments, including one of my current projects with Bridge Housing, which will be opening this summer and bringing 203 affordable units, as well as supportive resident services to the River Place neighborhood on Portland's South Waterfront. This project, and like any of my other prior work, has taught me so much about the inner workings of the ecosystem we are discussing here tonight.
So we're here tonight during Design Week to shed some light on why it isn't as simple as it might seem to develop affordable housing. Because this is such a huge subject and a hot topic, we wanted to think it through through a larger lens than just architecture and interior design. To help us with that, we've invited this amazing panelists to help us out. So I'd like to introduce them in no particular order, starting with Eric Kress. Wave to the people. There we go. He's an engineer and a designer by training and now concentrates on acquisition, development, finance. As a principal at Urban Development Partners, he oversees budgets and the development of projects from acquisition through construction. So we're going to throw out a couple of icebreaker questions just to lighten the mood a little bit. So Eric, yeah, if you had to pick your favorite restaurant in Portland right now, what would it be?
I guess I've been partial to Lynetta lately. You know, I like Mexican food, so I've been enjoying that. So if I'm not there, I'm either at Trifecta or Tufts. So.
Excellent choices. Thank you for that. Thank you for those recommendations. Next up is Julie Livingston. Wave to the people. If you've ever been through design review, you might recognize her. She's the chair of the Portland, Oregon Design Commission and a senior project manager at Home Forward. So, your icebreaker question. If you could have a superpower, what would you want it to be?
I'm asked this often.
Yet you hesitate.
I always think there's got to be a better answer than the one that I have.
Sorry.
I would choose to be invisible.
Oh yeah, wouldn't we all? Yeah, no, totally understand. Thank you for being here. Our next panelist is Steph Condor. She's the Vice President of Development for Related Northwest, and in her role, she's responsible for establishing Related's presence in the Northwest, while leading and managing all aspects of development and financing for their affordable developments. So, Steph, rumor has it you already have a superpower. We understand you're an accomplished karaoke singer, which means your icebreaker question is, what's your go-to karaoke song?
It's easy. Fleetwood Mac Dreams. I love that.
Yeah, excellent choice. And yeah, as luck would have it, we have a stage.
I'll do it.
And
And a nice large screen behind you.
so just, yeah.
Just let me get my drink.
Yes, start drinking now. And last but certainly not least is Mike Steffen. You don't need to wave your hand because you're the only one left. Mike and I go way back. We've done many affordable housing projects together. He is currently the Director of Innovation at Walsh Construction Company. He is their past General Manager for Oregon. And lastly, but most importantly, this week he happens to also be a designer as a licensed architect. Thank you for being here, Mike. And your question is, if you could be a character from TV or film, who would it be? And Indiana Jones is off the list. You can't choose Indiana Jones.
Very easy. I would be Dashiell from Wings of Desire. The angel who comes down to earth and sees everything.
Wow, that's good. That's deep. Yeah, I'm feeling that. Okay. So we'd like to start getting into our questions here. So Julie, we'd like to just start with you with a kind of a foundational question. If you could give us kind of a short primer on the nuts and bolts of housing affordability to be sure we understand what affordable really means, how would you describe it?
Yes, okay. So there are 3 people here that probably know as much or more about this as I do, but chime in. So affordable housing is a really big descriptive bucket. And in theory, it's housing that is financed with low-income housing tax credits. And it generally serves households at or below 60% of area median income. So when Home Forward, my employer, develops a new building and uses tax credits to finance it, we are building housing for households at or below 60% of area median income. Rents in those buildings are set at a certain rate below market, and the folks who live in those units could pay any percentage of their rent to live in those units. And so it's entirely possible that households that qualify to live in affordable housing and are living in affordable housing are still rent burdened. That's the world of tax credits. There then is also the world of federal subsidies. So there is public housing and all of the Section 8 voucher programs. And typically, the federal subsidies are serving more or less the same population. It's just a different funding stream with a whole bunch of different reporting, and there just isn't much of it. So the vast majority of affordable housing in our community is actually mixed finance developed with tax credits. And it's for folks at 60% or below, which means everyone between 60% and generally about 120% workforce housing. There is no subsidy there. So a huge percentage of our population has immense housing need.
All right, the next question is going to be kind of targeted at each of you, so feel free to take your turn. But we'll start with Mike on this one. How do you view the Portland housing problem, and what are the hurdles from your day-to-day work?
Well, I think affordability is the number one issue, and it's not just affordability in terms of the cost of what it costs to build and what it costs to buy or rent, but it's also the cost to operate. And also you can think about things, so what I mean by that is what your utility costs are, particularly if you're a person with lower income, and also what it costs you to live in a certain location in terms of your transport and such. So it's transportation costs can be big to people. So how we go about developing our housing within our region as impacts on people. Michael and I had the privilege to work on the Orchards project with Reach Community Development out in Hillsborough, which was a really great demonstration of how to make housing affordable on all of those three issues. One, we built it for a relatively low price, which keeps the rents down to begin with. We built it at the Passive House project, which keeps the utility costs down for the folks who live in the building, as well as keeping Reach's operating costs. And it's located across the street from the light rail stop, the MAX stop out here at Marengo Station. So they have transportation options. They could actually, live without a car if they chose to. So we can think about housing just beyond the pure issue of first cost and the many costs and many dimensions of affordability. And then the other side of that, or I think related to it, is how do we deliver the housing and operate it sustainably while we're doing it affordably? We all know about the environmental issues we're encountering and how we need to enhance the environmental footprint of our, not just our new development, but our existing buildings as well. So how do we bring up the quality and the performance of these buildings while we're also doing it affordably is a huge challenge.
Getting a lot of feedback on that.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, same question to you. How do you feel the Portland housing? How do you view the Portland housing problem? What are the hurdles?
Yeah, so we're a market rate developer, so we don't do like tech deals, we don't do affordable housing rate, gap finance, subsidized deals. And some of what's happening here is reminiscent to when I was working down in the Bay Area years ago and just seeing affordability, displacement, lack of affordability within the region, and how it affected the local economy, livability of the cities down there. And coming up here, what was really refreshing is back in 2010, when we were delivering LEED Platinum buildings, I was out leasing, and as I was leasing, it was 2010, so I was a leasing agent too. And I was out leasing these units, and I was really proud of leasing to families, people of all occupations, and their incomes were 70%, 80%, what would be considered 70%, 80% AMI today. And those were high quality new product. So we could depend on market rate developers to deliver workforce housing back then. And you fast forward to today, that same project is same product is $235 a square foot compared to $132 per square foot back then. So there's just no way for us, given the cost of construction, to deliver on that mission of providing housing for our workforce using market rate development, which is it is kind of depressing, you know. And the idea of using public subsidy to house our workforce, I don't think that's a winning narrative. It's not a long-term sustainable solution. So I do think that this design weak. I think we also need to look at it as a systems level problem. Those occupants of those units back then, if you look at the rise in their income at SHAMI, it's been very low compared to those who are earning higher incomes or those who are coming in with higher earnings at above 100% AMI. So we definitely have an equity issue on the other side of affordability, right? So there's the cost, but there's also the income side. And I used to, I remember back particularly in the Bay Area, thinking about subsidized workforce housing as an important part of the equation. I think it still is as a pressure release style. But there's also a line of thinking among economists that providing essentially workforce housing or living quarters for your workforce while you're not paying them an equitable wage is not going to be something our descendants are going to judge us well for. We need to think at a bigger level to think about providing people a wage so they can choose housing that works for them, that's equitable, that rises with the rest. And that involves things like education, involves very difficult political decisions around living wage, providing living wage. It's a hard political negotiation. Yeah, I don't have any solutions. Steph's going to answer.
Would like to start? No pressure. Yes, please. Short attention span. Sorry, developer.
How do you view the Portland housing problem and what are the hurdles?
Well, first our list is on my back. But more importantly, I think what you were both saying is accurate. I think the design element of efficient construction costs, efficient design, operations are key, because all holistically goes into how you structure your deal and how the deal works, right? But also, you're saying, I keep hearing labor pools, right? The cost of construction is escalating, and it's a function of the finite labor that we see out in the market, right? With lots of trades. We're really hindered that way, so I think that's something we all need to be aware of. I don't have an answer, but that is one of the biggest pinch points I think that we can all address, that we find that this escalating component of construction costs. I think also in Portland, I don't know if you all just saw, I think it was US Weekly that just said Portland was number 8 in the country of cities that is most desirable to live in. And I was like, stop printing this! Stop! It is very desirable. I grew up in Oregon. I lived in the Bay Area for a number of years, and when I had my kids, I was like, it's just easier in Portland, and I can please go home now. And I think a lot of people come up here and see that. I bet by a show of hands, how many of you relocated to Oregon? Me? Yeah, okay, we all love it here, right? And that's not going to stop. It's a continuing theme. And so land is finite, and a lot of people are migrating here, and we're going to continue to see this. I think what Metro is doing is a really good step of saying, look, we know that we are going to have a continued housing crisis. It's on the horizon, and they're getting in front of it. I think the collaborations with the state, the governor, who's trying to pass about 400. That's okay, set the mood. Get your drink. I'll sing a little Stevie Nicks. Let's do this. I like you. Thank you. So, back on point. So I think that what I like to focus on the positive, and the positive is we see real collaboration with funding, agencies working together to what we're doing is being looked on the entire West Coast. Washington isn't doing this right now, so we like that, right? What we're doing is really setting a precedent, so I think that's a positive. The negative is they're probably not going to stop coming, none of us will, right? This is a great place to live, and so it's about smart design, working with, design commission and making sure that what we're doing is very targeted and mindful of the integrity and design that we all cherish here, because it's charming, right? It's still charming, let's keep it.
I got a volunteer
Okay, Julie, how do you view the Portland housing problem and what are the hurdles you see?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts about this. The first is that we're 3.5 years into a housing emergency, and it's only getting worse, right? We've got the Portland bond, we've got the regional bond. We are figuring out how to spend that money. We're more than 2 years down into the Portland housing bond, and Portland Housing Bureau is now going to give us permission to go forward with the first new construction project for that bond expenditure, which is brilliant. But it could maybe also be the only, if you look at how that bond money is spent, good on us for passing the bonds, really good on us for passing the constitutional amendment. There is going to be a lot of acquisition. Buying existing housing stock costs a lot less than building new, just no matter how you slice it. And those dollars need to go as far as they possibly can. That means we're going to end up buying a lot of housing stock. A lot of it's really old and really tattered. So there is, there's an inequity in that that I think that we should all be aware of and be concerned with, because now all of this housing that is available to folks at very low incomes is not necessarily really solid, reliable, durable housing. So there's that. And then there's inclusionary housing, which seems to be having a pretty significant impact on market rate development. And there's a lot of stuff impacting market rate development. This is just one more thing. And it seems, kind of given the near crisis that we are at with market rate development and the legitimate crisis that we are in with affordable housing, it's time to start thinking about how to approach this as a broad umbrella type of a housing problem, and how we can all solve it together. Because I don't think the market rate is going to pull itself out of this without dealing successfully with inclusionary housing. And dealing successfully with inclusionary housing means figuring out how to make inclusionary housing work right. So you're right, it's sea change.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our next question here. Does Mike always go first? That's our strategy? Yeah, it's not a bad strategy. Okay, in the past there's been a sort of moral discussion about not experimenting on affordable housing design standards and the way people live in the affordable world. Meanwhile, market rate developers are taking the lead on smaller units, micro units, innovative shared amenity spaces, single room occupancy, SRO housing. Does the affordable world need to recalibrate and allow some of the lifestyle and design innovations that are happening in the market rate housing to lead into new design and construction solutions for affordable housing?
Yes.
You don't get a second beer.
So for those of you involved in affordable housing in Oregon, there is Oregon Housing and Community Services that provides a tax credit financing for many homes that are constructed in the state every year. They have established quite a lengthy set of standards for those developments. Some are mandatory, some are what we would call advisory. You can push back a little bit on some of those recommendations or requirements through a variance. And I think it's upon us as practitioners and housers, advocates for more affordable housing. We have a limited amount of resource in the community to provide our affordable homes. So if we have ideas of ways to do things better, more effectively, so not, again, harkening back to work I've done with Michael on some projects recently where we've looked at optimizing unit plans for apartments. For example, one-bedroom apartment, which the state of Oregon through OHCS says has to be 600 square feet minimum. We've said we think we can make a functional apartment, functional home that's very livable but more efficient, more cost efficient, and frankly more energy efficient, more operationally efficient for 500 to 530 square feet instead of 600 square feet. We don't do that willy-nilly and just say, hey, we're going to do that. So on the project that we were working on recently, we built a full-size mock-up of the apartment that we proposed through the variance program and had folks from OHCS come and walk through it, and they saw that it works. It will work just fine. And in fact, it's about 15% larger than what the market rate delivers right now for a one-bedroom apartment. So there are ways to be innovative and push the envelope a little bit. I don't think it's resigning the folks who are going to live there to an inferior facility or home if it's well thought out, well considered. And that's just one example. It can take many forms.
Yeah, I think, well, in market rate, you ask the customer. So human-centered design, you try to, you talk with them, you do focus groups, you see if they're going to find this desirable. Oftentimes it's a choice of living in the core in a smaller unit or outside the core in a larger unit. So they do make that choice. From a social perspective, we hope that our transportation network works such that, they choose not to live in one of the larger units. From the market rate perspective, that we're efficiently getting them in and out, and giving them access to the city. We look in market rate co-living, we're doing co-housing projects, looking at smaller units. We try everything we can. It's probably smart to make that learning, provide access to that learning to affordable housing development. I don't know about. The question might be about leading. Do you experiment? It implies that you're leading through through a certain population that might be vulnerable. That does not sound like a good path. Yeah, exactly. The thing about market rate is there's an element of choice. So that's probably a good area to experiment. And if those are working for market rate, at least that provides some indication that something that might be fair and equitable for affordable housing as well.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, one of our thoughts in the process of optimization was the market is actually delivering one bedrooms at 450 to 500 square feet. So pushing from 600 down to 525 is kind of the middle ground, rather than being experimental, I guess, if you would call it that.
Well, and that's my experience with working with OHCS. I think they're pretty reasonable. They have a guide and they say here's the parameters that you can put in for a variance, and we've always been successful. And really all you do is point to the market. And if there's precedence for it, then they are very reasonable, because I think their mandate is to try to get as much housing out there as possible. I have not kind of wrote a block on that. I think with respect to innovation, I think within parameters, I agree with Eric, is working with taxpayer money, we have a responsibility to be efficient and effective, and you don't want to go too off the rails. And so innovative within a wholesome reason, right? Because it's all of our money that we're trying to support one another and folks that need a leg up, right? And so you have to be very responsible because it's public money. You have to keep an eye on the call on what you're delivering out there, but, I also think that working with, smart design, smart GCs, to be able to elevate is very important.
I'm not sure if I'm devil's advocate or if I actually believe this, but yeah, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to disagree with. Yeah, right. I'm going to disagree. I might even stand up for this. I'm going to disagree with the three people who are all much better at this than I am. I acknowledge that, and say that I think we need to throw away that old, tired idea about experimentation and realize that we are in a place where we need to problem solve. And we are in a housing crisis. It is market rate housing. It is affordable housing. The market has brought us to this point, and so we should all be actively lobbying all of the policymakers in our city and in our state to think differently about how we house people. So I was at the Kenton Women's Village 2.0 on Friday, and it was fantastic. These are tiny, tiny little houses. They are the tiniest of houses. They are large enough for a very short 2-foot long closet, and it's not even enclosed, it's just a rod on the wall and a single mattress. And they have a very modest heat source and a light, and that is it. They are safe. They make a community. And there are 14 women living in those little tiny houses that are just elated to be there. And Catholic Charities is able to bring wraparound social services to those women and able to move them into permanent housing within 12 months of them landing in the Kenton Women's Village. So our zoning code currently doesn't support exactly this, and we need to be doing this on leftover pieces of land all over our city. And then we need to figure out what to do from a policy perspective to make this possible and to encourage this, to encourage quads, to encourage dormitories, to include every single type of housing that we see across the spectrum of our lives and make that available to people that live here in the city of Portland and across the state. It is absolutely unreasonable. It is absolutely unreasonable that people who live in studio apartments are forced to find roommates on Craigslist to share their studio apartment with them. That should not be okay. You should not have to put all of your junk in a self-storage building because there isn't room for it in your house.
Are there policymakers here tonight?
That would be nice.
We've got this 5 of the 6 circles represented tonight.
Yeah, it would be great to have some policymakers here. I'm sorry that didn't happen. So
One thing though,
Yes.
I think we So, I do think fiscal responsibility, because I think that's important, but I also agree with the zoning code, because I was formerly the director of real estate development for Central City Concern, so working with, homeless populations and moving housing. And we did kind of a study on, okay, what makes more sense, SRO or dormitory? What we found is dormitory has very few confines within zoning where it's applicable. And SRO you can do all day long in high density residential. There needs to be a more lax criteria for dormitory housing, because it's also very important for the functionality with certain populations of cohabitating and also their recovery. And so by limiting that, you're kind of limiting their ability to socially interact. I mean, the design is really important for them to reintegrate back into society. So I think that I agree with you. We don't disagree.
So Julie, as a follow-up then, you're the current chair of the Portland Design Commission, is that right?
For at least another month.
Okay, for one more month. So there was a real effort to have design review requirements waived for affordable housing developments when City Council passed the Housing Emergency Ordinance in 2016. Can you talk about why you opposed that idea?
You're trying to set me up, I know it. Yeah, well, for exactly reasons that were stated earlier. This is a responsible way to spend public funds. If there are tax credits involved in the deal, if there is public investment in the deal, these buildings are part of our public infrastructure. We all share in the ownership of these buildings, and they need to stand up and perform. They need to be well designed, they need to have a great public realm, They need to do everything that every other building in the city does, and we all need to be able to be proud of it. Add to that, buildings that should go through design review but don't go through design review are letting down all of their neighbors. So, you know, as the D overlay expands and more of our centers and corridors are picked up in the D overlay, that gives much greater assurance to the neighborhoods and to the stakeholders that all buildings are performing at a certain level. Our public investments should be treated just as well as every other private investment.
I love you, Julie. But I'm not sure I agree.
You don't have to comment, but.
Yeah,
if you
just
do,
pass
that's
that
great.
I think design review serves an important purpose in our community. Closer. Design review serves an important purpose in our community. We need to strike the right balance between how much regulatory oversight comes through that process versus how much control is still left with the people who have to put the projects together, who are already dealing with a lot of other dynamics and variables to create these homes. So I actually appreciate that the city recognizes that and has made, I would say, concessions to kind of meet in the middle of it. And I think we have actually a pretty good setup right now in terms of finding the right balance there. We recently went through a vigorous process with design review on a development in Gateway for affordable housing, and I think the end result, it was just a super collaborative process between the design team and the design commission. It resulted in a really great outcome that works for everybody, and allowed our cost efficiency ideas to stay vital and to deliver a lot more homes for the dollar than would have happened otherwise. So I think actually folks involved, the city, including Julie, have really heard what some of the challenges have been for folks in affordable housing, and we're striking the right balance right now. But it's something that we need to continue to attend to.
I think, may not be befriending my developer friends here, but I do think the visual aesthetic is important in urban landscape. I mean, your views are other buildings frequently, and having visited some great cities that have great natural amenities but do not have an interesting and vibrant urban fabric, it really stands out. You've all been to these cities, or I'm sure many of you have. So it's part of what makes Portland great. So I think we do need to take some responsibility for that. I think we have to protect our design review process and make sure it works well. I've worked in cities where it does not work well, and essentially design review is hijacked as a tool for defending views and protecting parking and reducing density. And that's a real problem. And if we're not, design review needs to reflect our public policies and the big goals that we're trying to do and work efficiently and get projects efficiently. I think that's really, really important. Otherwise, it can really be a big problem for affordability, even beyond just the additional cost of doing quality design. So, what that might make quality design cost more, but slowing projects down is a big problem, and I think we need to protect design review and not have it overturned by city council.
Finding the balance, balance is key. Mike, maybe you could spend just 2 or 3 minutes expanding a little bit on the cost efficiency and design and construction work that you've been doing as one of the pieces of the puzzle as the solution to building more and better affordable housing. See if you can limit it to 3 minutes.
You have 30 minutes?
3.
3 minutes. 2 minutes. Wow. You know, the design of projects is all about setting priorities. And what we at Walsh, what we believe is that design quality is actually not counter to cost effectiveness in projects. So it really has to do with where you put the emphasis and set priorities for the design projects. So we've been advocating for design teams and clients involved in projects to use a set of principles in the design projects that really, with my Midwestern background, I say is really based in farmers' common sense. It's really about like going back to the way we did things 30, 40 years ago out of necessity to keep things cost effective. You know, really simple things like stacking your units. You know, maybe a lot of affordable housing is built out of wood framing for cost-effective reasons. Actually, it's a very environmental material to build with, so that's also good. But you know, when you introduce things like cantilevers, staggered windows that eliminate continuous load paths, a lot of things that happen in design now create issues, unnecessary issues with complexity of the design of the projects and lead to cost, additional costs. So it's sort of it's about like realigning. Well, actually, it's about accepting a certain set of additional constraints in addition to all the constraints that we already have on our projects. And if you actually follow these things, which aren't outlandish and unreasonable, and in fact, I like to say that buildings that existed before 1900, many of them were actually works of architecture, and architecture in nice buildings can be produced in this manner. Just following some of these basic common sense, what one of our clients calls radical simplicity ideas, can lead to real incredible results in cost reduction. And then as an example of the use of those ideas, working again with Michael and with Rage Community Development on a new project that we're working on in East Portland, we've reduced cost in Reach's calculation by 39% compared to what the state's cost limits are on a per unit basis for the projects. They set a goal of 30% reduction, and our team is at 39%. Our housing there, 175 units of housing, is down to $113,000 a unit. And it's a really high quality design. It's going to be a durable design. And furthermore, what we've shown, our goal in this cost reduction, our goal in this cost reduction process is not to take cost to the absolute minimum just for the sake of that, but it's to create this opportunity to be able to create great buildings out of what we're doing. So by reducing the cost that much, we've actually created this opportunity. And the opportunity I presented to Reach in the past few weeks, after we got funded, finally, by the state for the project, is that for $6,000 additional, we could actually have a passive house certifiable project in East Portland, 175 units of affordable housing. You add the $6,000 to $113,000, and you're talking $119,000, which is still 30% less than any other affordable housing project in the pipeline in the Portland area right now. So Reach is probably not going to do that because we're on a really tight time frame to close the deal and get under construction in June or July. But it's an illustration that applying this discipline of the radical simplicity can really produce results that can actually allow us to do the things we really want to do with these buildings in terms of building durably for the long term, actually creating budget room to put really good materials into the exterior finishes, and the interior finishes of the buildings and the performance upgrades that we need to do. So, definitely.
Thank you. All right, my next question for staff is, keeping in mind this concept of a housing ecosystem, how would you approach your projects differently to better engage with this network of agencies?
Was that for me? Did you say staff? I thought you said staff. That's you. How to better engage. A lot of development is relationship building, but it's also going with established relationships. So let me clarify that. Not to pitch to Ankrum, but I am drinking the juice. What I have found to be very beneficial is I don't have to restate my priorities and the way I work and kind of the expectations of the team. And so I like to put teams together that I don't mind trading in one that's new, but I like to keep some consistency to elevate and to expeditiously get to the design and get through the deal. Because I think you get a lot of efficiencies that way. And, like I said, I do believe that you have to be efficient with the funds. It's public funds. It's, as the board knows, it's scrutinized. We end up in court voting if we do it, And so, working with good design, good contractors that, mitigate risk, that consistently deliver is very important. And then with respect to public agencies, I think it's just understanding what their goals are and their priorities and executing on their behalf. I really do feel that that's what I do very well, is understanding what the current needs are, what the rules of the game are, and putting the right people at the table to solve for the problems that we're faced with in our communities. So I don't know more than that.
Anyone else want to add what you might do differently on your projects to help engage the larger ecosystem? Oh, anyone else? I said anyone else you have to.
Differently? No. I think you're okay.
So, housing is housing. It doesn't matter if it's for poor folks or rich folks. A housing unit is a housing unit. A housing unit is a housing unit, and I think that any architect in Portland can design a good one. So there are a lot of folks working in the city of Portland who specialize in affordable housing, and if we are going to really tackle our affordable housing crisis, I think we just need to blow the lid off of this, and every single architect working in the city should be solving the problem of affordable housing. Housing is housing. Anybody can do it. You want to do it exactly the way the step described if you're going to be efficient and knock out housing units. If we're going to do this other than where we're talking about other types of housing and solving the problem in different ways, we need new minds working on this. We need people who have not engaged in the housing discussion, the housing design to date. Same goes for construction. We need all the contractors working on it, all the architects, all the engineers, because it's our community, and we need to be creative as a much broader ecosystem than we currently are. Affordable housing is pretty narrow and pretty focused right now. Everyone should care about this, and everyone should be engaged in it. And that's how we make the best design work overall. That's when people get really creative and start solving problems, we get really, really good design work.
Well, I'm not going to say what I would change about the project, because we're kind of with the contractor. We kind of follow. But what I would suggest to people who lead projects, who drive projects, one simple idea is set a target cost. Start the project with a cost and challenge the design team and your construction partner.
It's not just you.
Let me get good. I appreciate that you underscored that. Set a target cost. It doesn't happen very often, and it's amazing what a motivation it is, and that's done. Because in reality, there should be a target, and we need to deliver a certain number of homes. And I think that puts pressure on the team.
And I think as designers, we're problem solvers and we appreciate the challenge, right? So if the developer gives us the challenge to design to a number, that's something we can wrap our design brains around and say, okay, I know I need to come in at this number for this part of the project. I'm going to design around that problem and design the best solution I can.
Yeah, I don't know specifically about how we engage. I would just say, well, a couple of things. I agree with Julie that we can do a lot more with our institutions in pushing the envelope in research around either construction technology or types of, we don't have, it doesn't seem like there's a major university program where there are significant funding dollars going into, certainly CLTs being researched, but we can do, I feel like we can do way more than that. And research institutions are where I think that should be happening. And getting government grant funding and whatnot to really push the envelope, because they're able to experiment. Private capital has a role. What private capital is good at is scale and risk. So we can certainly experiment to a degree, but a lot of our tech innovations are originated and conceived within public universities and within the federal government research programs. So we should be investing more in that. The other piece is the policy piece. We've invested a lot in our cities and created a lot of value in the housing in our cities. And that's a value, not cost. So people increase demand. People want to live in our cities because we've invested in our cities. At the same time, we've created a false sense of supply issue with regard to airspace and certain types of land. So you've got a perfect storm where you've increased demand and you've reduced supply. I think we can really rethink that and how, because logic, pervades that we're gonna have higher prices if we keep going down that route.
Thank you, and thank you all very much for your time and your insight and your expertise. Some things that stuck out to me, it is a systems level problem, and that's one of the areas that we need to attack. The need for living wage jobs is huge. If people make a little bit more, they can afford to live a little closer in, maybe their transportation costs aren't so high, they can afford to buy better food for their kids, etc. This idea of acquisition versus new builds is interesting to me. I think you're probably right. That's going to be a big part of the solution. It's interesting that it doesn't add new stock. I'm not sure we need new stock, but if people are moving to the state, that's not going to be the only solution. It's just to convert existing housing, which we're still going to have to build, and ideally we would build dedicated housing that's set aside for affordable tenants, affordable rents, 60, 90 years into the future. And I think that maybe the overarching theme has just been to innovate. We really need to be smart and thoughtful and creative, and we all need to innovate. And I think that's what this week's kind of about, is to help use design as best we can to design our way out of this problem by thinking about the big picture on a small level and what are lots of ideas to attack the problem and not just the ones that we know are in the pipeline right now. So thank you all very much. If you don't mind, we're going to open it up just for a few minutes to take some questions. So if people have a few questions, I'll walk around and hand the mic. So go ahead and raise your hand.
I got a big booming voice that works. There's not a single person saying about House Bill 2020, which actually addresses the CO2 for the future housing crisis. We have a 35% improvement or increased population and 80% reduction in CO2. How in the world do we plan to solve that problem? All we're trying to do is design a new house here, a new house here, and a new house here. We've got beautiful housing designs for a century in this area. Why change a thing? Not just keep rebuilding what we know works with clean, good technology for the future that is carbon clean. That's what our representatives are asking us to do as architects, as engineers, as citizens of this state, but not one person here brought it up. Why?
I will gladly take that question. That's exactly what we're trying to do by dealing with this issue of cost efficiency first. So so that we can address things like the sustainability component, energy. You know, there's been tons of talk in the industry for 20 years on energy efficiency and a lot of action, good stuff. Nobody talks about cost efficiency. Well, cost efficiency is a major path to getting to energy efficiency. So the whole idea of using these ideas we've been promoting is in the service of getting to more energy efficient buildings that will sort of allow us to decarbonize. Okay, so that idea of going to passive house on this 175 homes in East Portland that I'm talking about, finding a path that would actually allow us to do that and still be the lowest cost housing project in Portland at the same time, actually takes us to a net zero ready potential on the project where we can then put PV on the roof and actually get this thing to net zero. So passive house is a great path to get to net zero ready, and then you need to do this, the on-site renewable component to take you further to that. And it is possible.
Thank you.
All right, another question over here.
Hello. My general question is, we always talk about affordable housing, but why isn't it considered smart housing? And what I want to ask the four of you up there is, what size is your home?
When you mean smart, are you talking about like wired, like,
No, I'm not.
what do you mean?
We're talking about, in 1970, homes used to be 1,400 square feet.
Oh,
or
size.
the size of
Size, sure.
In 2009 is done. So
Okay.
I want to know from the panel up here, what size is your actual home? Because you're calling out
7,000 square feet, just kidding. No, just kidding. No, you know, and I think what Mike's alluding to is, you know, this efficient design. When he's talking about this low-cost housing, know that it's not a magic wand. It's a smaller unit size. It's an efficient unit size. There's components of stacking, but at the end of the day, we're talking about a smaller unit size. It is a big component of it, which is also what's going on in market rate housing. You know, as you urbanize and as you get more dense, you're finding smaller units. And as you go out further, you see larger. And although affordable housing isn't impacted directly by market economics, you are to some extent, maybe not in the urban core, but as you go out further, you get closer. 60% NFI gets closer to market. So you have to be mindful of what the standards are out there, because in a downturn, as we all work in real estate, we know that the market will get soft. Even affordable housing developers get pinched in those times where we have vacancy issues if we're not close to market, because why would you go and fill out all of the paperwork and have somebody come in to visit your unit if you go across the street and pay the same amount of rent and not go through all the paperwork and headaches? So you still have to have some mindfulness about what you're doing. But back to what you're saying, my house, like 2,800 square feet, 3 children. For us, it works. I mean, there's moments where I'm like, should we do the basement? I don't know. Was that the right thing to do? It's important to be efficient. I think I've said that at least 10 times today, not only with money, but also with unit sizes. But you also want to have a living unit where people have storage space. I mean, I can't tell you how important it is to keep these units livable, because they're just like you and I. They have needs, they have things, and they can't just...
you have a formal dining room, a regular dining room.
We've turned it into an art room. I mean, you know, glue gun, that kind of stuff. But we do have a picnic table in there, just to say we're keeping it real. So,
All right.
So my question.
We started at 948 square feet, and we put a couple of satellite dormers on the roof about 15 years ago, so we're at 1,650 square feet. So, family of 4, we struggled. That's impressive.
All right, we have one more over here.
So this will follow a little bit of space and efficiency. I'm a huge fan of row houses, particularly in Baltimore and Philly. How important to become known as a city of row houses particularly for row houses that actually have small yards or a little bit of green space. So often the proposition seems to be either you've got a single-family detached house or attached units, but they're condoed where they really have minimal to no outdoor green space. So what's the challenge in building a row house a la 1920s, 1930s of Baltimore and Philly that has small outdoor green spaces?
I mean, zoning is one issue. I mean, a lot of times you're stuck within, you're either in a high zone, a high density zone, piece of land, you're gonna pay for, you pay per unit, so you're not gonna put row houses, and then, as everybody knows, and is part of the narrative or the conversation right now, we have a lot of single family zoning here in inner Portland, and you just can't put row houses on it, so we'll see if that's gonna change or not. It's gonna be like,
Anybody else?
Okay, we got some other questions over here. Yeah, come around.
Hi y'all, my name is Lauren Miranda. I work at Friends of the Children, which is a local nonprofit. I also work for RDC, Retail Design Collaborative, which is an architecture firm in Long Beach, California. So I heard Eric, and it's Eric here on the end, you said something around market rate asks the client. And so what I hear is you're asking the stakeholder what they would like from out of their product. And so my question to y'all is, how are you engaging, elevating, uplifting, and putting into action the voices of POC and marginalized communities that are affected by the housing crisis and ultimately affected by what we're discussing tonight? And then after that, how are you all prioritizing feedback after you've created this units, whatever you've created, and how are you prioritizing feedback, and how is that then informing your next project, and what does that process look like for you all? Thanks.
Excellent, awesome question, because we also have a responsibility to serve families, seniors, low-income persons. Like I just stated, I think that, folks deserve storage in their units. They need to have livable housing. It's really important. I think one way that Related really kind of works in the communities. I was recently at a bond oversight committee out in East Portland, and really going there because it's working with the community and talking what are the issues that are faced out there. It's new arrivals, immigrant populations, communities of color, and understanding what they're faced with out there, and what are their number one concerns and needs to address low-income families. And some of the things I've heard is livable units, sizes, and also after-school care. Most of these folks are, working families or single mothers working. They have nowhere. I mean, childcare is crazy expensive. I got 3, and I know what that feels like. And we're a 2-income family, and it's difficult, right? And so imagine what low-income families face with. So what we try to do is co-locate. Like a Boys and Girls Club or something like that in the housing at no cost to help assist these families. They're also providing playgrounds, services. It's really an enrichment, partners that know what they're doing in that community. They're actually outreaching directly and know what the issues are. Working with the school district in those areas to connect with families that are homeless. Did a project out in the Davis-Douglas School District. 3% of the children in those school districts are homeless. It's crazy, right? So making sure that you're going out and doing outreach and saying, who are these families? And let's make sure that they know that this housing is coming to your community. Because we're not trying to bring other people to your neighborhood. We're trying to address what you're going on in your neighborhood. So, excellent question.
We're going to take 2 more quick questions.
Hi there. My question is relative to both affordable housing and market rate housing, and it's the simple word parking. And we could talk for another 2 hours about that, I'm sure. And I wondered if we could just grab sort of sound bites from everyone, both from the market side, market rate side, and from the affordable side, even from policy side, on where we are right now, and are there any rays of light, pointing towards the future? Thank you.
I'll start this, and I'm expecting to be at odds. We have the three panelists. So PBOT is Portland Bureau of Transportation is living in a world of transition, and PBOT is trying to figure out how will our streets be used 10 years from now, 15 years from now. The change is really rapid, and given that we just went through 2035 and refresh our zoning code, and some of those code elements are still rolling out, there is more change in front of us. We know that we are going to be using our streets much differently in the future than we do now. What does that mean for how we interact with automobiles, how they're stored, and what we should be planning for on privately owned land? So that's kind of one issue. What does the future really look like when it comes to automobiles? And deliveries from Amazon and everything else that goes along with that. And the other issue is there equity in our zoning code? So affordable housing, for all intents and purposes, gets a hall pass on parking. That's okay. Affordable housing also gets a hall pass on a bunch of bike parking requirements, or at least it looks different than it does for market rate housing. I don't know if that's okay. What's the next thing that's going to be different in the code that defines affordable housing differently? At what point do we realize that we are creating a lesser housing stock for people that live in affordable housing than we are for everybody that lives in market rate housing? The code needs to treat everyone equally. And then the developers, the architects, the contractors need to figure out how to solve the problem. It should not be a giveaway because that creates stigma.
I hear you. Parking is a problem. And I guess what I would say is, if you solve for parking, where everybody's a equal playing field, it's just going to need more subsidy, right? So we're going to pay more to build that affordable housing. It requires more land. So that's what
It should be eliminated.
Depends on where you're located. When you're a family that have multiple kids, do I want to go to the bus? That's tough.
Cargo bikes.
Anybody else want to take
Well, we have one more question.
Eric, do you want to answer it?
Do you have anything here?
Yeah, parking is our single biggest challenge. I mean, it's really difficult to build we're trying to do innovative things with design and parking. We just wrestle with it all the time. About 50% of our units come with cars in market rate developments. We make it as inconvenient as possible. We provide transportation passes, shared cars, car share, and they still come. They don't use them. They just store them, and we can't release units unless we provide them. So it's a real problem, and it's just the bane of our development existence. It's really the biggest thing we struggle with. And it's really painful to dump a bunch of money into the ground under your building. We just don't like it. It's depreciating really fast. We feel like it is, because it's not going to have a 30 or 50 year lifespan. So I feel like our code, maybe it means just getting rid of all cars. That's one avenue. I do sympathize with taking 3 kids to the grocery store, coming back with a bunch of bags. I have pictures of me on my cargo bike, but I cannot put enough groceries and kids. I can't push the pedal. Yeah, electric bike maybe, but it's pretty. So I do sympathize with families. But also, barring that, just figuring out a way to build our parking above ground so that it can be converted or reused. I just have a real problem dumping it into the buildings. I don't foresee. Maybe it'll be used for in the future, but I just don't foresee one right now.
I don't work like that.
Roller skates.
So here's the thing. People who live in affordable housing also have need of cars, especially families. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Families that live in affordable housing that have cars probably need them a lot more than the folks that live in market rate units. So there's that. That's completely separate from the code and the long-term vision of the Portland Bureau of Transportation. We got a lot of off-street parking in the city of Portland that at some point we are not going to be using. And my kind of greatest dystopian vision, of which I am incredibly fearful, is that the best use for that parking is shelter. You know, all of that parking could house people. And we're not designing it smartly enough to allow it to be flexible to house people in the future. It's going to be really lousy shelter housing. We're not using it for cars.
Okay, one last really juicy one.
Last question.
Actually, thank you for that. I think that might be a good segue. I'm going to go back to kind of back in my days of design and school. We used to talk a lot about how this thing, AutoCAD and computer, and these great manufacturing ability to build units inside a controlled environment and have all this quality control and energy efficiency and cost effectiveness, and being able then to put them together like a kit of parts. And I'm really surprised because I went to school a long time ago and I didn't hear any of that mentioned. So I would like to challenge the contractor and the market rate developers to set the way for looking at some of those innovations that I think we as a, we're a system that we've gone way down a path, and it's going to be a huge, huge change. But I think we need to try to embrace it, kind of like trying to go to the metric system. But I do believe there's opportunity there to provide quality housing at even more affordable rates and have it more unitized, where we can add to our kit of parts.
So I know Mike has thoughts on this. I will tell you that I spent the afternoon today looking at conceptual cost estimates that compared stick-built affordable housing to pre-manufactured affordable housing. And the cost difference was only 7%. Okay, so we're almost there. And again, this was very conceptual. All of the stuff that causes a developer and a public agency to decide on stick-built rather than modular is, the target business participation numbers are incredibly low for the modular because you don't have to, you just don't have to follow the same rules when you're building it in a factory. The permitting process is a huge risk. So even though it looks like you're getting the units to market 5 months faster, you really don't know what you're signing up for there. There are just all kinds of unknowns yet. We've got to work through all of those unknowns and be able to answer those questions before it's really real.
Well, I'll say something that it just doesn't seem like it's there yet. That's what everybody keeps saying. And yet it seems very close. I saw a 3D printer of a concrete building and it seemed to make sense to me. I was like, yeah. So it is definitely, eyes are on it. I know Related is doing modular down in California. The jury's still out, and it really comes down to your GC to be an experienced. Well, I look at Walsh and I would trust Walsh. I would, and I'm not saying that to, because we're in front of all these people. I really believe it. But you really have to be careful because, again, I've had a couple of projects where it's had even panelized systems where the panels don't show up on time or they don't install them right, and all of a sudden this efficient, lower cost model cost me more and took more time, and I was like, how did we get here? And so it makes you a little weary, right? And so I say, as a developer, you really want to select a GC that has done it and can do it, and that would be my only comment. I think it's a great idea. It has a lot of potential, and yet I haven't exactly seen it work. But this is the thing, you got to work the bugs out, right? So, how you doing?
We have an half hour.
3 minutes. 2 minutes.
We need another panel discussion for this one. Modular is the best idea whose said it was happening 20, 30 years ago. It's the best idea whose time has never come. And it, frankly, still hasn't come. And I will say this, that doesn't mean it won't come. And we are very open to continuing to explore it. We explore it as much as anybody. We built the 9-unit project on Holgate 6 years ago. We tried to build a 45-unit project in Hillsborough 6 years ago, but that one did not pencil at the
60 units in North Portland, starting in July, with the local manufacturer Mods, and hoping it goes well. It's not, I believe, as cost effective as site building. We're building a project in Seattle right now that's modular. So we continue to do it. It does not say cost, it does not say cost. It saves time on site, it does not say project time. So its time is not yet here, but we hear rumblings that its time is now in the Bay Area, which suggests that maybe its time will be here soon. We'll just have to see what happens with market dynamics, but there's a lot of issues involved in that but that's some of the reasons that we're still not flying with modular and that it's still not mainstream, so to speak.
Thank you. Did you want to say?
I just think it's really complicated. I mean, you're putting a building together, you have so many systems that need to work together. So it's kind of hard for the GC because they're working with subs, multiple systems. I mean, that kind of work needs to happen in a laboratory. I mean, with Holiday and those guys are doing that in the area with Factory HQs. It's interesting because at least bringing all those together, and maybe that's one spot where they have enough risk capital to experiment with manufacturing an entire system. But if you look at modular today, the automation, I mean, essentially they're doing a lot of the same work just in a warehouse, right? I mean, the automation is pretty primitive when you compare it to other technology advancements. So we're not seeing, the envelope pushed like you would if you were doing experimentation in a lab where you're actually creating fabrication technologies that put these systems together systematically so you can pump them out at scale. You're not really seeing that. So I think it's a lot to ask from essentially a GC or even the way the modular developers or contractors are capitalized right now, the manufacturers. You really need to, again, look at lab funded or venture capital funded type of companies to push the envelope because they have a much higher risk tolerance.
Thank you. Thank you again to each of you. If you have a moment to stay around, I'm sure people would like to have a little one-on-one time with you. If you need to hit the elevator, I would do that quickly. We're going to dim the lights, bring up the music. Steph's going to start doing karaoke. I think there's beer left and food. Please have a round of applause for all of them.